Hey good people, and welcome to the channel. In a few moments, I'll be sharing my thoughts and feelings on episode 2 of season 8, Ready to Love Miami. And for this review, I'll just give my thoughts on the episode, and I'll spend part of the review asking you as the viewing audience some open discussion questions that are related to tonight's episode. So without any further delay, let's jump right in. So for episode 2, Nephew Tommy introduces a new curveball to the remaining cast members. Now I knew that the 4 remaining cast members would eventually be introduced to the group in some form or fashion, but I didn't expect them to be introduced this early in the game. But that's what Nephew Tommy does. He introduces Cynthia, Janique, Mark Anthony, and Febreze to the group. And my first impression with this introduction was how unfair it was to the folks who got eliminated in the first episode. In my opinion, if all the cast members were introduced in the first episode, then Z would have likely been eliminated, and the women would have likely ganged up on Febreze to vote him off. I like Cynthia being part of the show. She's visually stunning, she has a strong personality, but she seems like she knows how to reel it back and do the things that men like for beautiful women to do, like flirt, radiate feminine energy, and be submissive in the biblical sense. I can't completely say the same for Janique. While she is indeed attractive, she is loud and proud, she shows signs of being jealous and possessive, and she wants a man that can handle her. Now I have an entire section in this review dedicated to asking questions, but I have to ask this question off top. To all the ladies out there, why does a man need to know how to handle a woman? When I think of having to handle a living, breathing thing, I think about wild animals that might need to get tamed or domesticated. But when I think of a woman, I think about knowing how to respect, honor, and cherish her, not how to deal with her attitude, especially if she's out of pocket. But every time I saw Janique in this episode, I couldn't help but cringe, because she's the type of woman that I would avoid if I was on the dating scene. On the men's side, there's Mark Anthony, who some of the women were immediately attracted to due to his looks, and Febreze, who's an old head that none of the women complimented on his looks. The brother talked about sex nearly every scene on the show, and it rubbed some of the women the wrong way, but Sue-Ann was all for it. Speaking of Sue-Ann, she hasn't really gotten much screen time this season, but I hope that changes going forward. But there were a few connections that were established or explored a little deeper this episode. As of right now, it looks like Tony is into Morgan and Marcia. Now I didn't really give either of them a legitimate shot in the beginning of the show, and this was primarily due to their age, as well as the competition on the show. But I think they may surprise everyone, and I don't think that Tony will make up his mind on who to choose until the end of the season. I think DeMario is developing a stronger connection with Jeffrey, but I think as the season goes on, Jeffrey and Corvea will be eliminated. I think Andre and Cynthia are a good match, but I think another guy is going to swoop in to get Cynthia towards the end of the show. And it's still a little too early to determine the remaining connections. But towards the end of the episode, Nephew Tommy met with the men to see which women they were feeling and which they weren't. And most of the guys liked Mercedes, Morgan, and Jeffrey as their top picks. But they chose Corvea and Z as their bottom picks. And I completely understand why they were picked. You see, Corvea is attractive, but she thinks that she's more special than she really is. And as a result, the guys on the show know that there are more attractive women with half the ego to choose from, which makes Corvea expendable. And when it comes to Z, as I mentioned before, she reminds me of Ace from the Potomac season. I'm sure when she's off camera, she's a really cool and laid back lady to hang out with, but she was not only nervous this episode, she was also coming off as a little insecure, and this was because she was up for elimination and it impacted her willingness to open up to the guys. Simply put, I don't think that this show was for her, and there's nothing wrong with that, because TV isn't for everybody. However, I do believe that Z should have been given another chance, and Corvea should have gotten eliminated. In my opinion, Corvea adds nothing of value to the show. She's confident and arrogant, whereas Z is introverted and guarded. Most of the guys that I know would rather deal with a woman like Z over Corvea any day of the week. But on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give this episode a solid 5. Some of the things that happened throughout the episode were unexpected, but as previously stated, I did not agree with the elimination. In my opinion, Corvea was kept on because she would bring more drama to the show as the season goes on. But I do have a few questions for you as the viewing audience. My first question deals with the topic of sex. And to the ladies out there, When is it okay for a man to talk about sex when on a date with you? In a general sense, of course. I ask this because I know quite a few women out there who are completely open to asking a man any and every personal question while on a date. And these personal questions range in asking a guy about his credit score, criminal history, how much he makes at his job, and so on. And my thing is, if you can ask a guy who you hardly know anything and not get judged for it, then why can't a guy simply talk about the topic of sex without getting the side-eyed or labeled a creep? My second question is, who do you think the guys will use their Lifeline pass on? I think I forgot to mention this earlier, but Nephew Tommy introduced the Lifeline pass to the men, and whenever they have the power to eliminate, they can opt to save one of the women from elimination, but all the guys have to vote unanimously on it. I think that the pass will likely be saved for the last 2 to 3 episodes, and it might be used to save Morgan, Marcia, or Jeffrey. But this marks the end of my review. Feel free to leave all comments below in the comment section, and I'll be sure to reply to everybody. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.